I'm sorry. That hurt me as much as it hurt you. That's dull. Let's sharpen it. This is made by Worksharp, and Benchmade put their name on it. There's a lot of different ones with the exact same features on it. Benchmade has put their name on this one. So the first thing that you need to do is figure out how dull your knife is. Is it not cutting something what I want it to cut? I'm going to go right to the coarse side. Then there's the smooth diamond, and then there's a ceramic rod with 2 different grits on there as well. And then at the end you can strop it. So you got everything in one. It's great. So we're going to start with the coarse diamond, and you can use this guide right here. 20 degrees is a good guide to go off of. So for a smaller blade like this, a thinner blade, you want more of a steeper bevel. And then for, say, an axe or more of a blunter tool, angle that out just a little bit to maybe 25-30 degrees in there. Easy way to find that, that's 90 degrees to the sharpener. Half of that is 45. Half of 45 degrees is 22.5. Or about a blade width somewhere in there of this knife right here. So if you don't have a guide, you can use that method. So I'm going to start with the coarse side because it's so dull. And you can do 2 different methods. The draw method here, or a circular method. Just making circles, starting from the back and going towards the tip. Now something that you want to remember is do the same number of strokes on both sides. So if I do 2 on one side, 2 on the other. Make sure you're safe. That's the only downfall of this one. It's easy to bring your fingers up and cut those or cut a knuckle. So I'm going to sharpen until it can't get any sharper on each sharpening device. So the circular method or the draw method, it's really up to you. They're both accomplishing the same thing. So we finished sharpening on the coarse side of our diamond stone right here, or diamond steel, and we established our bevel. If your knife is really dull, you want to re-establish a bevel, something that you can stay consistent. Then we want to go to the next grit down. And so it's going to be a little bit safer to hold it with your thumb and pointer finger, and it's going to be much more difficult to cut yourself that way. So you can keep your hands out of the way, brace it on a rock or something solid, not on your leg, because that would be self-critiquing, to cut yourself that way. And then do the same number of strokes until you feel that burr. And so a good way to feel that burr would be if it catches something like a pine needle or a stick. And you can see how I can just feel how it's dragging across there. It's not smooth, but it's dragging across. That's telling me that there's a burr, that there's a rough edge all the way down. And that burr is where your knife and your bevel comes together, and then there's little microscopic hairs that fold over and hang over that edge. And so you want to make sure you remove those burrs with each subsequent grit. That's why you want to get down further and further. Because if those burrs, what happens if you just leave it coarse, they just fold over and then make it real dull real quick. So I want to keep moving my way up. Same number of strokes on both sides. Check it with your device, with whatever you're using. It could be a little stick too. Stick doesn't have to be a pine needle. You just want to try and avoid checking on your hand again and doing what I did from the start. So use a pine needle, that works well. Once I've determined that I can't get it any sharper on here, I'm going to go to the coarse part of the ceramic. Coarse, fine, and then there's a spot to sharpen fish hooks as well. And so I'm going to use the coarse side here. You still got the same bevel angle if you want to use that. Make sure you're staying consistent, because if you're all over the place with your angle, it's going to be frustrating. You're not going to get your knife sharp quickly or as sharp as you want it. You can look at your blade and see how polished it's getting on the bevel right here. And as I'm looking at it, things are looking pretty consistent. You can tell right here. Now it's not dragging as much. It feels consistent all the way down. This process doesn't take very long once you get your bevel established. Can't get any sharper on the coarse side of the ceramic. And then you see on my fine side of my ceramic it's starting to get dirty. So you can wet your finger down, you can wash it off, wipe it off. And you can see that dark, that's metal shavings right there. So you don't want those metal shavings to be clogging up whatever sharpening stone that you're using, whether that be in a ceramic rod right here or a diamond steel, and especially a rock. When you buy rocks as sharpening stones, or there's artificial ones, those can fill up as well. So you can keep things lubricated by putting water on the stone and keeping those metal shavings floating around the surface and not sinking in and clogging things up, because it takes a long time to sharpen your knife if it's all clogged up. It's just not cutting the steel away. I kept this in my pack while I was hunting this year, and then as I cut a little bit, then I go right back to the ceramic and keep the edge nice and honed. All I would do would be about 5 strokes on each side and then go back to cutting. That maintains your edge really well. That's getting real smooth and that's getting nice and sharp. Is it sharp enough for my needs? Then really you don't have to go anymore if you don't want to. But to get this even sharper, we want to get rid of as many burrs as we can. So then we're going to turn it around and go to our strop. And we're going to go backwards. Don't gut into it, you'll cut it right in half. So go backwards, keep it at the same angle. Work from the hilt to the tip. You don't have to use a piece of leather. You can use a piece of wood, anything to help get rid of those burrs. I've even heard of some people using their hand, but in a survival situation, that's not a good practice. Use something else. You don't want to cut yourself or something stupid. So it doesn't take much of a strop. You don't necessarily need a compound in here. Compounds can help if you really want to get it ultra fine. But for this, it works great. Hair shaving sharp, just like that. Now if you feel it here, after you strop it and it's smooth all the way down, you've done a good job. Now it doesn't feel as sharp. Say if you wanted to use your fingers and you feel, you go, oh, that doesn't feel extremely sharp, but it actually is because it's so smooth. Then we can go on and then cut what we want to cut. Then when you want to close your blade, use 2 hands to close it. We're talking survival situation here, being ultra safe all the time, because when you're malnourished, you're out down there for long periods of time, you don't want to use your leg or do something dumb. Always be safe with whatever you're doing. You can get way into the weeds with sharpening, buying multiple stones, going down to several thousand grit, or you're accomplishing around the same thing with this right here, going down subsequently to each thing finer and finer. So for around $30, you can get in the game nice and cheap and keep surviving.